Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So continuing with our series where I'm reaching out to some of my friends, old and new, and all of them are in an advisory role in their business. I invited my friend Christian, who's a relatively new friend, to come on the show because he spent some time playing football, became a financial advisor, and now services coaches that coach football. And so I found that loop quite interesting because he still taps into that passion, but actually has added to it and is serving the community that served him as a player. So as always, it's more of a conversation between he and I. You're a welcomed and invited voyeur to watch us chat. Christian, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and happy whatever day it is in the midst of this COVID craziness and things we're living through.
It is crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's, well, we were laughing today because we tried to do this a few hours ago. And of course, Zoom wasn't working because we probably got 10 million people on it. And then, of course, cameras aren't working, microphones aren't working. And so, if anything, these days take a lot of patience. So maybe kind of start us off by telling us a little bit about your business right now, but then after you kind of give a little overview of what you do, what I want to do is talk about your time as a football player and then the bridge up into kind of serving the football community.
Financial advisor, work out of a firm based in Toledo, Ohio, Wilcox Financial, Wilcox Sports Management, and got connected with these guys actually during my time as a football player at Bowling Green. Our CEO and owner, he is also a fellow BGSU Bowling Green State University alum, and just got connected with him during my time there. But what we do is we have a niche. It's not the only thing we do. It's about 30% of our clientele within the firm, but really help football coaches with their financial planning, comprehensive look, and just helping them understand because they're in a position where they don't have much free time. It's a career path that has over the past probably 2 decades really ramped up in terms of the revenue in it, as well as the stress and the pressure of being able to deliver and get wins. So we kind of help and act as their quarterback for their team to make sure that they have all their dots in a line.
When did you start playing football? Like, did you play? Because see, being Canadian, football isn't a big sport that we play. Like, we play a lot of rugby, play a lot of lacrosse. I mean, we're football fans. I mean, please don't judge the CFL as being representative of us thinking that that's football, because it isn't, obviously. Apologies to our friends who own the Eskimos and the Rough Riders. How old were you when you started playing football? And then, like, when you went to uni, did you go on scholarship, or how did that kind of work for you?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of a unique story. I'm 6'6", so a fellow tall man like yourself. Grew up as a basketball player, actually, and didn't really start football until my senior year of high school. So I think, is that your post-secondary, or what do you call that? Or is that actually high school?
Yeah, senior. So senior high for us would be like grade 11 and grade 12.
Senior year of high school, we got a new football coaching staff, and our high school is not known for being a football powerhouse, known for like more of the country club sports. Decided, hey, I'm a little burnt out from basketball. I did the whole AAU circuit, gave it a try, had a little bit of success. And actually a family friend of mine who was in between college football coaching jobs, he opened my eye. Like, I had never heard of this, but it was a prep school called Fork Union Military Academy in Virginia that specialized in helping people that were either they needed some help academically to play at the next level in college football, or people like myself, a late bloomer who had the academics, had the SAT, ACT scores, but just was a little bit needed more playing experience and time on the field. So went there, and then from there, that's how I got recruited and wound up being, I think I had like 15 or 16 full scholarships after going there with 0 3 months prior. So,
and what position were you playing?
Quarterback.
Wow.
So I went there for 4 years, and I redshirted my freshman year. So I had the 5-year and then wound up doing my MBA during that time period as well. So,
oh, wow. Okay. So what was your undergrad in?
General business with a finance specialization and then just a general MBA course. My thought process was, let's try and use football and get something else out of it, knowing that my playing days were very close to the end there.
So you never had in your mind that you were going to go pro or anything like that?
I definitely did when I first arrived on campus. I think every college football dreams of that. But I just knew that I battled a couple injuries throughout my playing career and just really understood that, hey, I've got to figure this out of what's my next 30, 40 years going to look like and what opportunities can I take advantage of and connections that I make. What can I do to springboard my professional career and start looking at that?
You don't get the pro contract, probably the CFL. You could have absolutely been a starter. I think they start you at 35 grand a year Canadian, which is nice, which is like 15,000 American. So that would have been pretty special. Actually, as a bit of an aside, back in the day, I was in Edmonton. And so Edmonton, the province over from British Columbia, I went into the big and tall, as you would appreciate, right? Going somewhere where I can get pants that are long enough. The two guys working behind the counter are the offensive lineman and the defensive captain of the Edmonton Eskimos. And so I was shocked, and I thought it was like one of those, Make-A-Wish McDonald's celebrity works the drive-through. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, oh, we work here in the off season. And so that's how little Canadian football players make is, they're hawking $300 suits in the off season. And so you finish university, and then what do you do? Like, do you go right into financial services, or is there something you do in between after graduation?
During my MBA, I took a study abroad over in France. So that was kind of like my graduation, getaway. While I was technically studying, came back, had one more course, and I graduated, I think it was August 8th. My boss and CEO, Mike, he was like, so when can you start? You already took your Euro trip. We got to get yourself to work right now. Graduated on the Saturday. I was in the office working on the Monday.
How did you know Mike before? Through football?
He's a BG alum, very connected to the university and helps it out. Big believer in paying it forward. The coach who told me about going to Fork Union, when I decided to commit to Bowling Green, which is kind of like a full circle, he's actually a Bowling Green alum. And he said, I know you want to get into business. I know you're a football player. You need to meet Mike Wilcox. Whatever you want to do in business, you need to meet him. So I convinced my head coach at the time to coordinate a meeting so that I could ask him to do an internship. I came up to the office, crazy, it's like almost 10 years ago now, and asked him to do an internship just with our clientele and the privacy and confidentiality purposes. We unfortunately don't do that. And he was like, no, we can't do an internship, but I'll offer to be a mentor throughout college. So I just ran with that.
Quite a gift. When you graduated, you kind of jump into the business. And how big is the business at that point? How many advisors were on the Wilcox team?
So there were 6 advisors, and the most recent hire before me was in 2009, I think. Wow. So it was about a 7-8 year until they brought somebody else in. And then there's another younger advisor that joined about the same time that I did. So relatively small in the industry, but in terms of our landscape, it's pretty widespread, clients all over the country.
One of your areas of expertise, which actually popped out in my head once I knew you were a ball player, is you had said you actually do some work with football coaches. So was that something that Mike was already doing that you contributed to, or was that something that you kind of brought to the table? How did that come about? Because I know that you guys are nationally known for kind of being experts in working with those football coaches.
Mike definitely was the one who kind of quarterbacked that, and actually is another Bowling Green connection, believe it or not. He was chairing a search committee for BG at the time for their next football coach, and this is early 2000s. I'll leave names out of it, but You can go Google who it is, but wide receivers coach, and got told, hey, you're going to be the next head coach at Bowling Green. So he, at this point in time, the firm was focused on business owners, doctors, high net worth individuals. But this coach came over, and Mike was helping him out because he was on the search committee and whatnot, and just getting adjusted to the community, and was like, so what do you actually do? And he explained to him, we help consolidate retirement accounts. We help get you connected with a tax planner, get you connected with a estate planning attorney, just kind of help that model. That kind of the football coaching industry is a very small knit community. And if you take care of one person at a time and focus, good word spreads fast. Became helping out the coaching staff to now, in order for coaches to move up in the industry, in all likelihood, you have to move out. So it just, the spider web just continued to grow and grow over these 20 years.
So I would assume like you're talking about with that progression, as a coach moves out, a new coach comes up, and probably that existing coach who's a client introduces the new coach and says, these are the guys we use, you should use too. So it's one of those wonderful things about a niche market where it actually will replenish itself.
Yeah, definitely. I've found that the best way to grow your business is by taking care of that one person. If they believe and trust in you, then you no longer have to sell yourself to them. Right. There's already that built-in, I trust that what you're going to do is take care of me and my family.
Well, that's what I like about you, Christian, is I like that, a lot of people, when I ask, who do you serve? They say, well, I serve everybody. But when you and I kind of started chatting, you were pretty clear on the markets that you want to be involved with. And you talked about those kind of business clients as well. But, having that focus is kind of, it's almost like having that single sport rather than saying I play baseball, football, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, lawn dart, chess. Like when you can kind of focus in on one or two, or like in the case that we preach, 3 niche markets, you can really serve them even better, because every new client you have, you learn how to serve them better and everyone else like them better. When you're bringing in new files, are those files mainly regional, or are you getting them kind of right across the country now due to those coaching relationships?
So it's spread all across the country. I mean, our global headquarters are Toledo, Ohio. We only have one office, but we fly all over the country, give presentations to staffs, more so as like an education piece. So just financial planning and investing 101. Like we just typically will go pretty regularly in the off season when the coaches have a minute. We just did our first in-person one of the year this past Friday.
Is it important to them that you were a player?
100% agree with that. I think it's being able to, you want to call it talk shop with them and understand what it was like to go through. For the coaches now, it's a running joke. It's getting easier and easier and easier. There's no more 2-a-day practices. In my time, the older guys were saying there's no more 3-a-days, and their uncles and dads there's no 4-a-days. Going through that similar thing and understanding spring ball, but also understanding when's the best time to communicate with them. Because when it's football season, it's full tilt. Like there is so much pressure to get wins, and you only get 12 opportunities. So just to be respectful of them that, hey, now is probably not a good time. But that's why building a relationship with the significant other of the coach helps a lot tremendously, so that they can be a part of the comprehensive planning. And when coach has 6 months that he's not able to talk, we can still be in communication and make sure and just check in with them to make sure everything's all right.
Before I let you go, and I know your time's tight, and of course you're 3 hours ahead of me, and you suffered through my technological challenges today, so I do appreciate it. You probably have to get home for supper at some point. But last question for you. What do you see in the year ahead? So you said, you did your first in-person meeting just recently. How are you guys tweaking or evolving your model, or are you, in relation to kind of the pandemic and all the like civil unrest? I mean, there's lots going on in the U.S. Are there any adjustments adjustments that you're consciously making, thinking, these are the adjustments we may need to make for the next year and a half, 6 months?
Definitely. I think that, I don't remember who told me this, but just using crisis as an opportunity to just refine processes. We've done a lot of shifts to do similar things like this, Zoom calls and Zoom meetings. This morning, I had a meeting with a coach down in Florida, and typically we wouldn't have any face-to-face interactions. It would just be phone calls, but it allows for a more, I don't know if it's intimate, but just you get to see what their reactions are. You can get to know them as a person before actually meeting them in person. So definitely implementing technology and using it.
Christian, I appreciate your time. And so I'm going to ask your permission, but if you've seen any of these shows, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to do it anyway. I like to invite viewers, if they have questions, to post them in the comments and or email them to me for either Christian or I around some of the things we talked about, and we'll do our best to try to field those. Everyone, thank you for watching, and remember that gladiators eat first, and so regardless of what's going on, there's money to be made. You just have to get that mindset to go do it. And I hope today's show give you a little insight on how Christian kind of does his business. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.